What happens when a CEO who's built everything from scratch realizes he's the last to know how bad things have gotten in his own company? Gavin Ashford stood in the back of his SUV, pulling on a gray hoodie and an old cap. His beard, grown out for weeks, itched under his chin. He looked nothing like the clean-cut CEO who sat in boardrooms. 14 warehouses across 3 states, and he hadn't stepped into the sorting floor of one in over a year. He built the company out of his garage 10 years ago. It started with 5 clients and a rented van. Now it was a full-scale logistics chain, moving everything from electronics to groceries. But lately, complaints had been rolling in late deliveries, broken packages, high turnover. His gut told him something deeper was going on. He picked Warehouse 9. It wasn't the worst performing location, but it had a high quit rate and more damaged inventory reports than the rest. Gavin had never met most of the floor staff. The company had grown too fast. New hires came in monthly, and with layers of middle management, he was barely involved in frontline operations anymore. Today he was Travis, a new temp from a staffing agency. The disguise worked. He walked in through the side door, clipboard in hand, and nobody looked twice. No one at this warehouse had ever seen him in person. "Hey, you the new guy?" a woman called out from behind a stack of crates. He turned. She was maybe late 20s, sweat on her brow, safety vest half-zipped. "Yeah, Travis. I'm Olivia Ortega, supervisor. You'll be with me today. We're short-staffed too," called out. Another one quit this morning. She didn't smile, just handed him gloves and motioned toward the back. "What happened to the one who quit?" Olivia sighed. "Didn't say much. Just walked out. You'll see why." The warehouse was a maze of rollers, boxes, and forklifts. Loud, hot, and fast. Gavin kept up, lifting, scanning, sorting. He kept his head down and listened. 2 hours in, he watched Olivia take a moment to help a young man who was clearly struggling to read the shipping codes. "Hey, slow down," she said gently. "You got this. Just match this number here to the bin. I'll double-check the rest." The kid nodded, grateful. His English was limited, but his work ethic was clear. Olivia didn't rush him. She just stepped in calmly and moved on. Another worker, an older man with thick calloused hands, tapped Gavin's shoulder. "They don't usually train this good," he said, nodding toward Olivia. "She's one of the few that actually care." Gavin filed that away. He was already noticing a divide. Some people coached, others barked. Just past noon, a sharp voice cut through the noise. "Move faster or go home. I don't care where you came from." Gavin turned. The foreman, a tall man with a shaved head and a red clipboard, was in a worker's face. The worker, maybe early 20s, looked terrified. "I'm trying, sir," the kid said softly. Trying? You've been here 3 weeks and still don't speak English? You need to figure it out or get out." Gavin's stomach twisted. The kid was frozen, eyes darting around. No one intervened. The foreman kept going. "You know what? Take your break. Hell, take the rest of the day. Come back when you're not wasting my time." The young man stepped back, visibly shaking. He dropped his scanner and walked toward the exit. Gavin felt the heat rise in his chest. He looked around. No one spoke up. Either they were scared or used to it. "Who's that?" Gavin asked Olivia quietly. She clenched her jaw. "Foreman's name's Rick. Been here 2 years. Has pull with the district manager. Complaints don't go far." Gavin didn't reply. He just picked up another box. By the end of the shift, his back hurt and his hands were sore. He'd worked hard, but harder still was watching people try to survive under pressure and fear. In the break room, Olivia sat across from him with a plastic container of rice and beans. "You thinking of staying long?" she asked. "Honestly, I don't know." "Well, if you do, watch out for Rick. He's been worse lately, especially with the newer guys who don't speak much English." "Has anyone reported him?" She gave a bitter laugh. "To who?" "Our district manager hasn't stepped foot here in months. And HR only calls when someone quits." Gavin nodded slowly, his jaw tight. That night, back at his hotel, he stared at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep. He thought of the young man being humiliated in front of everyone. Thought of the silence that followed. He'd seen enough to know that something had gone very, very wrong in his company. And tomorrow he was going back in. The morning air was heavy with the scent of oil and cardboard as Gavin stepped into the warehouse again. His hoodie damp from the fog outside. He kept his head down, just another temp clocking in. The loading dock buzzed with the low hum of forklifts and the metallic clang of pallets being shifted. It was earlier than yesterday, but the pace was no slower. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while Olivia handed out assignments. She looked more tired than the day before, her eyes rimmed with red. She didn't comment on it, just handed Gavin a scanner and pointed him toward receiving. "Truck's late," she said. "They'll want it unloaded fast once it gets here. Watch your footing near lane 3, floors slick." He nodded and followed her direction. The concrete felt colder in this part of the warehouse and the air carried a faint mildew smell. It was quieter here, tucked behind crates stacked to the ceiling. A thin man with a limp moved along the edge of the loading zone, dragging a pallet jack. Gavin approached. "You need help?" he asked. The man looked up, blinking through thick glasses. "You knew?" "Yeah, grab that side. These rolls weigh more than they look." "I'm Alan." They worked in sync, lifting the awkward, shrink-wrapped bundles onto a dolly. Alan moved slower than the others, careful with each step. His left leg dragged slightly and his breathing was shallow. "Been here long?" Gavin asked without looking up. 5 years, Alan said. "They moved me to receiving after my hip surgery. Didn't want to lose the hours. I keep pace best I can." "Some days are better than others. Anyone give you a hard time about it?" Alan paused, then gave a slight nod. "Rick wanted to put me back on the dock last month. Said no exceptions." Olivia pushed back. "That's why I'm still here." Before Gavin could respond, a loud metallic crash echoed from lane 3. He dropped the roll and rushed toward the sound. A stack of brake rotors had tipped over, scattering across the floor. A woman knelt beside them, her right hand pressed against her thigh. Blood seeped through her jeans. "Don't move," Gavin said instinctively. She looked up in pain. "It slipped. I tried to catch it." Her voice was tight, controlled. Another worker ran to get Olivia. Within seconds, she was there, crouching beside the woman. "That's not a scratch," Olivia said. "You need urgent care. Can you stand?" The woman nodded, gritting her teeth. Olivia helped her up, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I'll clock her out. Get her to Med 1, Olivia said to no one in particular. "Tell Rick I took her." As they left, Rick entered from the far end of the warehouse, eyes scanning the scene. "What happened here?" he barked. Gavin spoke up. "Pallet fell." "She got hurt." Rick narrowed his eyes. "Should have stacked it better. We're already behind." "She was following the checklist," Gavin said evenly. "It was unstable." Rick ignored him, turning to the others. "Clean it up and move on. We don't have time for this." The group hesitated. Gavin felt his jaw clench as Rick turned and walked away without another word. No concern, no questions. Just pressure. Back at receiving, Gavin helped Alan finish the bundle loads. Neither spoke. The mood had shifted. People moved faster, made fewer mistakes, but the air was tense. Later, in the lunchroom, Gavin sat with 2 employees who hadn't spoken much the day before. One was a middle-aged woman with a ponytail streaked with gray. The other, a tall man with a soft southern drawl, picked at his sandwich. "That girl's leg might be fractured," the woman said. "I told Rick those rotors needed a proper rack. He doesn't care unless it delays a shipment," the man added. "Even then, he just blames someone." The woman leaned in. "You from the agency?" "Yeah," Gavin answered. She nodded toward the far end of the room. "You see that guy? Tall, shaved head? That's his cousin. Works day shift logistics. That's why Rick doesn't get touched. They're protected." Gavin looked over. The man she pointed to leaned against the vending machine, laughing with 2 others. He wasn't in uniform. His ID badge was flipped backward. Protected by who? The regional manager. Nobody talks about it, but people know. You file a complaint and it vanishes. After lunch, Gavin was assigned to help a team in packaging. The area was understaffed, only 4 people for a line that clearly needed 6. A girl barely out of high school struggled to keep boxes sealed fast enough to feed the conveyor. Gavin jumped in, taping and stacking, staying quiet. The girl wiped sweat from her forehead, her hands shaking slightly. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "I'm fine." "You sure?" She hesitated. "I've been drinking less water. Fewer bathroom breaks." Rick watches the cameras. He blinked. "Wait. What?" "He times us. If you're off the line too long, you get pulled into a coaching session. That's what he calls it." Gavin's stomach turned. "How often does that happen?" "3 times for me. 2 more and I'm gone." He didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he worked silently beside her until the shift ended. That night, Gavin sat alone in his rental car across the street. The warehouse loomed in the darkness behind him. He replayed everything: the injury, the threats, the fear in the girl's voice. This wasn't mismanagement. This was a culture of intimidation. Cruelty disguised as efficiency. He called his assistant. "I need employee files for Warehouse 9. Especially anything on Rick and his cousin. I want performance reviews, write-ups, complaints. Everything." There was a pause on the other end. "Gavin, is something wrong?" "I'll explain later. Just get me the files." The next morning, Gavin arrived earlier than anyone else. He waited in the break room until Olivia came in, surprised to see someone already there. "You're early," she said. "I need to talk to you." She set down her bag slowly. "Okay. I'm not Travis. My name is Gavin Ashford. I own this company." Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak. "I came because I needed to see what was happening here." "I've seen more than enough." She stared at him, stunned. "I want you to gather the staff. Everyone. Warehouse floor, admin, maintenance. No exceptions." She nodded slowly and walked out. 15 minutes later, the entire team stood in the loading area. Gavin stepped forward, still in the same hoodie and cap, but now fully himself. "I've been working with you the past 2 days. What I saw, the pressure, the threats, the injuries, the silence is not what this company stands for." Murmurs ran through the group. Rick stood near the back, arms crossed, unreadable. Gavin continued. "Rick, come forward." Rick stepped up, eyes narrowing. "What's this about?" "You're done here. Effective immediately. Escort him off the premises." 2 security officers who had arrived minutes earlier walked toward Rick. He started to protest, but Gavin raised a hand. "I've reviewed the footage. I've read the complaints. I've talked to the people you've abused and ignored. You're not welcome in this building again." Rick glared at the crowd, then at Gavin, but said nothing. He walked out with security beside him. Gavin turned back to the team. "This warehouse has been running on fear. That ends today. We're making changes. Real ones. Starting now." He looked to Olivia. "You're the acting general manager. Effective immediately. I'll be working with you directly." She blinked, stunned, but nodded. "We're increasing staff, fixing broken equipment, and installing a direct line to my office for any complaints. No more buried reports. No more ignored injuries." The room was silent, but the tension had shifted. Not gone, but different. Expectant. "I'm sorry I was gone so long," Gavin said. "That's on me. But I'm here now. And I'm not leaving until this place becomes what it should have always been." He stepped back. No applause followed, just a silence that meant people were still processing. But Gavin didn't need praise. He needed change, and it had just begun. By the next morning, word had spread beyond the warehouse walls. Gavin sat in a folding chair in the small shipping office, reviewing a stack of printed employee surveys from the past year. Most had never been opened. His assistant had overnight them along with incident reports that had somehow never made it to corporate. He scanned each one, marking them with red pencil: misfiled, unresolved, retaliated. Patterns emerged fast. Names repeated. So did the handwriting of the same manager signing off on every dismissal. And it wasn't just Rick. At 7:30, the first shift was already pushing pallets, but the tone had shifted. People still moved quickly, but with less tension. Olivia was walking the floor, clipboard in hand, but this time she paused and asked questions. She didn't hover, didn't bark. She just watched, alert, calm, sharp. Gavin joined her near sorting. His hoodie was gone now, replaced with a simple black polo and jeans. Still plain, but no longer pretending. "I need to speak with Vince," he said, eyes scanning the crew. Olivia nodded toward the far belt. "He's by machine 3. Tall, brown jacket. You'll want privacy." Gavin walked over and tapped Vince lightly on the shoulder. "Got a minute?" Vince turned, cautious. "Yeah." In the back maintenance corridor, away from the noise, Gavin folded his arms. "I know you're Rick's cousin. I also know you've been skipping safety checks and signing off on inventory you never counted." Vince stiffened. "He told me to. I'm not here to hear what Rick told you. I'm here to ask what you did. Did you falsify counts?" Vince looked away. "Sometimes. If we were short-staffed. And the fire door being blocked last week? That was a rush shipment. I moved pallets there for 10 minutes, except the logs show they stayed there for over 2 hours. You signed off on that clearance." Vince didn't answer. Gavin's voice stayed level. "You're dismissed. Effective now." "You serious?" Vince's tone shifted. "I didn't even do half the crap he did. And you stayed silent through all of it. You watched people get hurt, get threatened, and you cashed your paychecks on time. That makes you part of the problem." Vince opened his mouth again but stopped. Gavin didn't wait. He radioed Olivia. "Can you meet me by the side door with security?" He left Vince there until they arrived. Back on the floor, the team was adjusting, trying to figure out what came next. Gavin didn't interrupt their rhythm. He walked to the far end where a temporary wall divided the warehouse from the underutilized storage bay. He took notes, then returned to Olivia. "How many floaters do you have on a normal day?" "Technically 2. But lately it's just been me filling gaps. That ends today. I want 3 new hires on call by next week. Full-time, not temps. Can you shortlist candidates from inside first?" "Definitely. There are a few who've been asking for more hours. Find them." He made his way toward receiving. Alan was there again, his movements slightly easier than before. Gavin stood beside him, holding the dolly steady as Alan adjusted a faulty wheel. "I read your file," Gavin said. Alan looked up, confused. "You've never taken more than 2 sick days in 5 years, even after surgery. You trained 12 new hires and filled in for 2 roles that were never officially yours." Alan gave a short laugh. "Didn't know anyone was keeping track. Most of it wasn't written down. I had to ask around." Alan nodded, quiet for a moment. "You know, I never thought I'd see someone from corporate down here. Not like this. I never thought I'd need to come." "That's on me. You're fixing it now." "I'm starting to." They worked in silence for a minute. Then Gavin asked, "What's the worst part of your day?" "The last hour," Alan said. "When you're most tired and everything has to move faster. That's when mistakes happen. Would you stay if we made it better?" Alan looked at him. "I never planned to leave. Just didn't want to be forgotten in the corner." Gavin nodded once, then walked away. Near the break room, he spotted the teenage girl from packaging. Her name tag read Kayla. She stood by the vending machine, arms crossed, eyes darting to the clock. "You on break?" he asked. "Yeah. 10 minutes. You look like you're waiting for it to end." Kayla shrugged. "Can't be late." "You're not. I checked. You've never gone over." She didn't respond. "I want to ask you something," he said. "Why'd you stay here after 3 write-ups? Why not just quit?" She hesitated. "I need the money. My mom's sick. I'm the only one working right now." Gavin nodded. "I'm covering your next semester of community college. Full tuition. You'll still get paid here, part-time, if you want to keep hours." Kayla blinked. "Why?" "Because I think you've been punished for trying to survive. And I don't want that to be your story." She didn't speak. Her eyes dropped and she nodded slowly. Gavin stepped away before the moment stretched too long. Later that afternoon, a delivery truck pulled up. It was 2 hours late and the driver looked exhausted. Olivia waved Gavin over. "He's missing 4 crates. Says they never got loaded." Gavin climbed into the truck and checked the manifest. Sure enough, the paperwork had been altered. The driver said he picked it up from Warehouse 6. "I'll handle it," Gavin told Olivia. He walked back to the office and picked up the phone. "Get me the manager at Warehouse 6. When the call connected, he spoke clearly. "I've got a driver here with a falsified manifest. If I find out anyone at your location is altering shipments, they'll be terminated on the spot." No warnings. No second chances. The manager stammered something about confusion in dispatch. This isn't a warning. It's a standard. Fix it. He hung up. By 4 o'clock, the crew had hit their numbers. Barely, but they did. Gavin stepped onto the floor and raised his voice just enough to carry. You hit the target today without Rick. Without Vince. With less yelling, less fear. That's not a fluke. People paused. Forklifts idled. Gloves dropped into crates. I'm not promising miracles. I won't pretend tomorrow's going to be easy. But this warehouse, your work, it's not invisible anymore. You have my attention. And you'll have my support. He didn't wait for applause. He just nodded once and walked back to the office. Inside, Olivia sat at the desk, typing notes. Payroll's a mess, she said. People weren't getting overtime properly. Took me an hour to figure it out. Fix it. Retroactively. They'll get every cent. She looked at him. That's going to cost. Then it costs. She leaned back. You're not who I expected. I'm not who I used to be. She studied him for a moment. You're going to need more than firings and speeches. They've been burned before. I know. And they'll expect you to disappear again. I won't. She nodded slowly. Then I'll hold you to it. Gavin stood by the window, watching the last few employees clock out. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or investor decks. He was thinking about Alan's limp, Kayla's hands shaking over a roll of tape, Olivia holding a bleeding worker upright. Tomorrow he'd be back, not to check in, to work. 2 weeks later, Gavin walked into Warehouse 9 with no disguise, no hesitation, and no cameras. The morning light spilled across the concrete floor as he passed the time clock. A few heads turned, but most kept working. That was fine. He wasn't there for a show. The changes had taken root, but the ground was still unsteady. Trust wasn't something you bought back with speeches. It had to be built hour by hour through decisions that held. In the admin office, Olivia was already at her desk, sleeves rolled up, reviewing shift assignments and open requisitions. She looked up briefly. 2 of the new hires start Monday, she said, tapping on a printed schedule. 1 more after orientation. All internal referrals. Anyone from packaging? Yeah. Mateo, quiet guy, sharp. Helped train 2 temps already. He'll be our new floater. Gavin nodded once. Any issues with the schedule? We're still thin on swing shift, but I've adjusted the load balance. It'll hold if we don't get another spike. Good. What about safety? New straps arrived yesterday. I've got a mechanic from corporate checking the dock lifts on Friday. We're phasing out the floor jacks next month. He leaned against the edge of the desk. And the girl who got injured last week? Her name's Tasha. She's recovering. I called her personally. She wants to come back. Said no one's ever followed up before. Make sure she's not rushed. Light duty only when she's cleared. Olivia didn't reply right away. Then you're doing it. I wasn't sure before, but you are. I'm just doing what should have been done the first time. Gavin spent the next hour walking the floor, not inspecting, just being present. He stood beside Mia at shipping as she recalibrated a defective scanner. He helped Rickson a transfer from Warehouse 3 sort a delayed pallet of hydraulic parts. Rickson barely spoke, but his pace was steady, his movements exact. Gavin noticed. At receiving, Alan sat on a low stool, labeling crates with a small thermal printer. The limp was worse today, cold weather maybe, but he was focused, steady. Gavin crouched beside him. You tell Olivia when it flares up? I've got my meds. It's manageable. That's not what I asked. Alan glanced at him. She knows. She cut my dock time this week. Let me know if you need a stool with back support. We'll order one. Alan gave a dry chuckle. 5 years. And that's the first time anyone said that out loud. Gavin stood again and moved on. He didn't need gratitude. He needed results. In the corner of the sorting area, Kayla was coaching a new hire, a thin, nervous guy in his early 20s. She moved with quiet authority, showing him how to seal boxes without wasting tape. Her voice was steady, her phrases simple. The new guy followed every word. Gavin waited until she stepped away to grab more labels. "You've got a knack for teaching," he said. She nodded. "I like helping people not feel lost. I remember what that felt like." "You still planning to start classes next month?" "I registered last night. 3 courses. Evening sessions. You'll stay on part-time?" "If that's okay." "It's more than okay. I want you to train the next batch of hires. We'll pay you hourly for the training, plus keep your regular shifts flexible." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right." He left her to it. Back in the main aisle, Olivia was speaking with someone Gavin didn't recognize. A man in a navy jacket, clipboard under one arm. She waved Gavin over. "This is Daryl from Regional Safety. He's here to verify the compliance upgrades." Gavin shook his hand. "Glad you made time. I've already seen more in 10 minutes than I've seen at some facilities in 6 months, Daryl said, flipping through the checklist. "But I did notice something." Gavin waited. "The emergency lighting failed during a test last night. Could have been a power dip. Could be faulty backup." Olivia frowned. "That's new. We tested 2 weeks ago." Daryl pulled out a photo. "This is from your wiring closet. Look familiar." She leaned in. "That's not our lockout tag." "It's not. It's a maintenance override. Someone bypassed the failover circuit." Gavin's voice was quiet. "Who has access to that panel?" Olivia straightened. "Only 3 people. Me, the night foreman, and the facilities tech." Gavin turned. "Where's the tech now?" "Should be on the roof checking the HVAC." Gavin didn't wait. He headed for the metal stairwell. The roof access door creaked open. The wind was sharp, carrying the scent of rubber and steel. Near the far unit, a man in coveralls was tightening a vent plate. He looked up when Gavin approached. "You Jason?" "Yeah." Gavin didn't raise his voice. "You bypassed the emergency lighting override?" Jason didn't answer at first. "Then I didn't think anyone was using that line. The battery backup kept tripping alarms at night." "Did you report the issue?" "I meant to, but I've been behind on work orders. And honestly, no one's ever asked about that system before. You put over 40 people at risk during a blackout. You bypassed a fail-safe and didn't report it." Jason stood slowly. "It wasn't malicious. It was just negligent." Gavin cut in. "You're done here. Turn in your badge before you leave today." Jason stared at him. "You serious?" "Dead serious. We don't gamble with lives." He turned and walked back downstairs without waiting for a response. By early afternoon, the warehouse buzzed at a steady rhythm. No chaos, no shouting. Just purposeful movement. Still not perfect, but functional. Gavin gathered the staff in the break room before the shift change. No announcement, no memo, just word passed quietly through supervisors. When the last person stepped in, he spoke. "I told you I'd come back. And I told you I'd stay until this place changed." He looked around. No one avoided his eyes. "We've fired 3 people in the last 2 weeks for putting others at risk. Not because I'm angry, because I won't run a company where safety is optional." A few heads nodded. "You've worked too hard, for too long, under people who didn't see you. That's over. From now on, this warehouse isn't just a number on a report. It's a standard." His voice stayed even. "But I can't run it from an office in another city. So I won't. Starting next quarter, I'm relocating the regional operations desk here. I'll be in this building at least 2 days a week, every week." That drew a few surprised looks. "No more layers between you and leadership. If something's broken, you tell me. If someone isn't doing their job, I want to know. And if you're giving your best, I'll make sure it's recognized." He stepped back. "I'm not asking for loyalty. I'm offering it." There was no applause. Just a quiet, grounded silence, the kind that meant people believed him but were watching to see if it would last. Gavin didn't need cheers. He needed them to know that this time, the change wasn't temporary. As the staff filtered out, Olivia stepped beside him. "You ever think about just being a CEO?" "I did," he said. "Then I remembered why I started this in the first place." She gave a dry look. Was it to rebuild a warehouse from the floor up? No. It was to build something that wouldn't need rebuilding. She nodded slowly. We're not there yet. No, he agreed. But we're not where we were. Outside, forklifts moved across the loading dock. The sun was starting to dip behind the far wall, casting long shadows across the pavement. Gavin stood for a moment at the edge of the bay, watching the rhythm of his company reel, imperfect, but finally moving in the right direction. And this time he wasn't watching from a distance.